So guys, today we'll be sewing the corset blouse we started last week. So if you missed my last tutorial, you should check it out for the step-by-step pattern drafting of this corset blouse. And this is the completed corset blouse on my beautiful friend right here. She asked and I made it happen for her. Let's get started with today's tutorial, guys. If you're serious about mastering pattern drafting this year, you should check out my pattern drafting course linked above to go from beginner to pro in no time. So guys, in my last tutorial we stopped at the pattern drafting of our corset. So yeah, all the panel pieces cut out. So this is my center front, one side front. Okay, I had two center fronts, so this is it, and then two side fronts too, and then my back pieces too. I also have that also cut out. Now I already ironed on some interfacing to the back of this, so you can see that. So I'm just going to trim off all these excess bits around there. And just to be clear, I ironed on interfacing only on the fabric and not on the lining. So I'm using the Ankara as my lining, and I didn't iron on any interfacing to the back of that. So we need to place these two right sides together this way, and then sew ½ inch all the way down. Then I'll sew this also right sides together with this, and then also this right sides together with this. Then the last one here, I also sew this right sides together with this. So when I'm done sewing, this one has the whole piece. This one has the whole piece now attached to our full center front here, right sides together too. And I now sew this right sides together, and then when I'm done sewing this one too, and it's now like one whole piece, then I'll place it here and sew right sides together too. And guys, this is what my front piece looks like after sewing. So look at my panels here. I haven't ironed anything, so that's why it's looking squeezed. This is my bust area right here. Now I'll just take this to my iron, and then I'll open up the seams, and then I'll iron flats and all. So yeah, I'll just do the same also for my lining pieces. So I'll take out the pins and sew the panels, and then I'll pick up my back piece also, and then I'll do the same thing. Then we move on to the next thing. And so this is my completed front corset. You can see what the bust area is giving at the bust shape, which is because of all the extra dots that we added to our pattern when we were drafting the pattern. So if you missed the first part of this tutorial, you should click the link I mentioned right at the start of this tutorial to find out how we drafted the pattern and everything. So yeah, this is the wrong side. I've also gone ahead to iron all the seams open. You can see that. So this is my lining piece right here. I did the same also for the lining piece, so you can see how the bust area, what the bust area is giving. And these are my back pieces. These are the two linings, and this is the actual piece, and here is the second one. So now I'm going to go right ahead to sew my boning on top of this. I'll sew my boning here, and so this is my boning right here. So to sew my boning, remember when we were drafting our pattern, we added like a 3/4 inch allowance at the top here. So before I attach my boning, I'll measure that 3/4 inch allowance down, and then I'll mark it. So let's assume this is it. Then I'll now begin to sew my boning from there all the way down. So you got the drift. So I'll not sew and stop at the hem. I'll measure. I added the 1 inch allowance also at the hem right here. So you sew, measure 1 inch allowance, mark it. So if this is it, you stop your boning right at that spot. So I'm going to do the same also for the front part. So this is the front piece, and then I'll attach my boning also. But instead of attaching the boning to the actual fabric piece, I'll be attaching the boning to the lining. So this is what I'll be using for my lining. But on the actual fabric, I'm just going to sew like one straight stitch line. So I just sew one straight stitch line here, just to give the blouse some form of like design. Is not, if you don't want to, you can leave it. So I'll just sew like maybe one straight sewing. Instead of sewing it at the right side, I'll just sew it at the wrong side. So where my seams are, I can just sew one straight stitch this way all the way down. Then I'll come here, I'll do the same again, one straight stitch all the way down, and then I'll do the same for all the other ones too. So I'll do the same for also the back pieces, but I'm not doing that for the lining. The boning will be on the lining like I explained to, but on the actual pieces, that is where I'll just sew in one straight stitch line. So I'll do that now, and then we can move on to the next thing. And guys, this is my boning attached to my corset top. So if you look at this boning right here, you would see that this one is not getting all the way to the top. That is just so that it gives there's a flexibility around here for my bust. So I just stopped the boning like just below the bust, just below the under bust, just at the under bust rather. So I started the boning just from the under bust all the way to where I want it to stop, as I explained earlier. So this is my front boning attached to the lining fabric of my corset, and this is the one for the back. So you can see that also attached, and these are the straight stitches I talked about earlier. See, so I just do one straight stitch, one straight stitch, and then I did the same also for the front. So you can see one straight stitch all the way down. So I don't know if you can see it, but you one straight stitch all the way down, and for all the panels really. So now one thing I'm going to do again is to come, so right still on my lining, I'm going to attach a crinoline or horsehair braid, whichever one you call it. So I'll attach that to the neckline of my corset to give it some more structure, to give my neckline some more structure, because you can see that the boning is not right at the top here. So, and I want my neckline to have more shape and structure. So I'll just attach the boning, I said boning, horsehair braid. So this is my side seam here. I'll measure 1 inch in. So on that 1 inch mark, let's assume this is it. I'll just place my horsehair braid there, and then I'll sew. I'll just sew at the tip up here all the way till I get to the other side. So when I'm done, I'll do the same also to the back lining, and then when I'm done, we can now talk about what next to do. And this is it done. So I've attached that, and I've also done the same also to the back piece and also to the second back piece. Now for the front, all I have to do now is to just pick up the actual front, this actual one, and then I'll just sew the two together as one piece, and then I'll just sew it just to keep both the lining and the actual top, corset together as one full front. And then we'll do the same also for the back. But before we do the same for the back, we need to first sew in the loops for the lace up back. Remember in the first tutorial we talked about not adding a zipper, so we'll be putting a lace up, we'll be adding our loops to this so that we can lace up the corset at the back. So before I put the two together as one piece, I have to do that first. And before I forget, one thing I haven't really mentioned during the whole sewing process is how important ironing is on your corset. So you need to really iron very well, just so that you maintain the shape of all the curves and just to keep everything looking neat and professional. So when you're ironing your bust, remember I said that when we finished attaching the panels, we needed to open up the seams, which I've done, and then ironed. So by the time you want to iron this part of your corset, you need to place it on top of your bust ham. This is my bust ham. You place it on top of your bust ham like this, just so that you can perfectly iron that curve, perfectly iron it so that it gives the right shape. So yeah, and that's why I did that, but I didn't show that part. So I just wanted you to note it when you're sewing yours. One thing also you need to note before we continue is that if you add your bra cups, this is the point where you fix in your bra point. So you need to fix it into this, so you can see you fix it into this place, and then you fix also here. So one trick I use is I use a needle and thread to just like attach it to the seams of my panels. I can attach it here, attach it here, attach it here, and attach it below, and then I'll do the same also here. That's how I attach my own bra cups to my corset. If you have another way, you can try that, but that is what I do. Now let's talk about the back. I'm going to pick up the two lining pieces of my back piece, these two. Then I'll be putting that aside. So I'll pick up the two actual fabric pieces, and this is what I have here. Then you're going to cut like a rope, so you can cut it as long as you want. So I've already folded it and sewn it up so you can see, and then also iron flat. So the width is, as it is sewn now, the width is about, let's see, about 0.65, or let's just say 0.7 inches. It's not up to 1 inch. So, and that is what I have here. Now I'm going to be cutting this small. So I'll cut it by 3 inches. So I'll measure 3 inches and then I'll cut. Then I'm going to use this to keep cutting the rest till I have all the pieces I need. And these are all my loops, guys. These are all my loops. So to attach them, you can see I already did for this one. So by the time you attach, this is what is going to give. So to attach, you first come to the top here. Remember on our pattern when we were drafting, we added the 3/4 inch allowance at the top here. So you measure that 3/4 inch and then you mark it. So it's already marked here. And then you come to the hem of your blouse again. At the hem, we added a 1 inch allowance, so we mark that also. So, and this is it right here. So I'm going to pick up my first loop, and then I'm going to place it like this on that mark right here. So place it here, and then you pin down, and then you bring this also, this one, you bring it this way, and then you pin down again, and there you have it. So you keep going, you pick up the second one, and then you attach, and then you keep going all the way till you get to, till you stop here. This is where you stop right here. So by the time you're done, you have this here. So when I'm done with that, I'll just pick up my lining piece, and then you place it over this, and then you just sew by 1/2 inch all the way down. So when you're done sewing, you turn it inside, and then you iron flat. So we keep everything really neat. So before I forget, we also need to, like, before placing this over this and sewing 1/2 inch here, we also need to finish up the hem. So I'll just place the two together, right sides together like this, and then I'll just sew 1/2 inch. By the time I'm done, then I'll now sew these parts also, so that we can have a neat hem just like this. So you can see that I've done that for this part. So, and then when I'm done, this is the finished part. This is what it's going to look like. So this part is already finished. Our loops are secure. So now I need to sew. I'll just sew like a 1/2 inch. So I'll measure half inch here and then just sew that down all the way down, so to provide, so that will just serve as a casing for a boning, because I need to put a boning right at this part to give the lacing some structure, to give this part more structure. And now we are getting to the end of this tutorial, so all I have to do, this is the finished back, so all I have to do now is to put in my boning into this. So there's a hole at the top here because we have not closed our neckline, so I'll put it through there and then I'll stop. I measured half inch up at the hem here, so I'll just stop here. So you stitch that down there. So when you have done putting the boning, you stitch this up also here, so measure 3/4 inch down and then you stitch this up here to keep the boning in place. Then you do the same for this one too, and when you're done, I'm just going to use my bias binding to tape the neckline. I'll just use it to close the neckline here. Do the same also for the front, tape with my bias binding, and then I'll place them right sides together, place both front and back right sides together, and then I sew at the sides. So I sew at the sides, sew at the sides, and that will be all for today's corset blouse. And this, guys, is a completed corset blouse. So yeah, this is the back. So all you have to do, tie it with a rope, and pretty much you'll have your waist snatched corset top.